Discover spine-chilling swamp secrets. 7 terrifying tales of the cursed and sinister. Nora gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white with tension. The croaking of frogs filled the oppressive Louisiana night, wrapping around her like an unwelcome embrace. She just finished another grueling shift at the clinic, where she'd seen tragedy masked in the sweat of dying patients. As she drove along the winding backroads of the Bayou, the air thick with humidity and the stench of decay, her heart raced at the thought of home and her son, Jamie. But what waited for her was more terrifying than the grim stories she carried from her hospital bed. The local carnival, once a vibrant explosion of joy, now loomed like a malignant ghost in the distance. Its colors faded, the laughter of children silenced by the whispers of disgruntled spirits. Rumors danced in her mind, the lost souls of the carnival, hungry for vengeance, waiting to drag in the unwary. Shaking off the chill creeping down her spine, she allowed herself to focus on the road. But her thoughts drifted back to the tales she'd heard. The townsfolk spoke of the carnival's dark past, of musicians who vanished and clowns who'd succumbed to madness. Panic fluttered in her chest as she remembered her conversations with neighbors who now avoided her gaze like a snake ready to strike. When she finally reached home, Jamie ran up to her with wide, innocent eyes, clutching a tattered carnival ticket he discovered in a decaying house deep in the swamp. His enthusiasm grated against her intuition, a nagging sense of dread that churned in her gut. She forced a smile, but inside, every fiber of her being screamed that something was wrong. Days turned into a haze of sleeplessness as Jamie grew more withdrawn, talking to imaginary friends with fervor. Voices from nearby homes crackled with whispered unease, and the sheriff shrugged off her growing concerns, dismissing them as the overactive imagination of a stressed mother. But the town felt heavy, thick with secrets, and the shadows of the bayou crept ever closer. The final straw came one night when she woke, heart pounding, to chanting outside their home. She peeked out the window, only to see hooded figures gathered in the moonlight, a grotesque parade of darkness. The feeling of being watched tightened around her throat like a noose, her instinct to protect Jamie roaring to life. Who could she trust? Determined to uncover the sinister undercurrent of her once peaceful town, Nora dug deep into the muck of its history. She stumbled upon tales of hidden rituals, of sacrifices made to appease the land. Horror twisted her insides. Was Jamie's ticket a key to the darkness that suffocated them? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The days stretched forward, each laden with an anxious weight. Then came the moment she dreaded, the day Jamie vanished. The cryptic drawing he left behind depicted a twisted carnival, crying out for help through a jumble of hooded figures and decaying attractions. Heart racing, she sprinted toward the swamp, terror pounding in her ears. There, at the base of the ominous house, flickering lights beckoned her through the swirling mist, illuminating the terror with an eerie glow. Time slipped away, her resolve tested against the chilling whispers that greeted her at the door. What sacrifice awaited her, and would she find Jamie before she, too, was swallowed by the Bayou's unquenchable hunger? Nora plunged into the house, heart pounding as heavy shadows swallowed her whole. The flickering lights cast jagged shapes on the peeling walls, disorienting her with every step. A damp chill seeped into her bones, each breath heavier than the last. The air smelled of mildew and loss, a sharp reminder of what had been. "Jamie," she called, her voice trembling as it bounced off the walls. Silence swallowed her cries, thick and suffocating. Every fiber of her body screamed for her to turn back, but she pressed forward, each step echoing in the emptiness. She clutched the drawing he left, the crumpled paper feeling like a lifeline, but its sinister imagery burned into her mind, each hooded figure twisting into something more monstrous. As she ventured deeper into the heart of the house, She stumbled into a narrow hallway lined with mirrors. They reflected only darkness, each image more warped than the last. In one, she glimpsed something move, a blur, a shadow, but when she turned, nothing was there. Panic licked at her heels, urging her to flee, but the sound of a child's laughter, her son's laughter, echoed through the air, leading her further into the abyss. She rounded a corner and entered a faded room. The walls adorned with remnants of carnival life, painted clowns, vibrant balloons now dulled with age, and faded posters promising happiness. But the atmosphere was thick with despair. An altar stood at the center, surrounded by wilted flowers and ominous symbols chiseled into the floor. A sickening realization gripped her. This was a shrine to the very darkness she feared. Before she could process the sight, Jamie's name rang again, a soft whisper that made her blood run cold. She followed the voice, heart racing, twisting deeper into the house, each room revealing more decay, more despair. The laughter morphed into guttural sounds, like a chorus of the damned rising from below, clawing at her sanity. "Jamie!" she cried again, desperation twisting her voice into something raw. "Where are you?" From somewhere far off, she heard a faint response, a tiny echo of her son's voice. "Mama!" It circled through the air, soft yet seemingly miles away, pulling her to a trap door half hidden under ancient carpets. Was this the way? Her instincts screamed at her to run, yet the connection to her child anchored her, relentless. With trembling hands, she pulled the door open. A steep staircase wound down into darkness, an abyss that beckoned. The stench of rotting earth and something far worse wafted up, nearly knocking her back. She hesitated, the weight of fear coiling around her limbs, but she couldn't leave him. She took a breath and stepped down, the wood creaking underfoot. Each step felt like it led her further into an inescapable nightmare. Whispers mingled with the air, echoing the stories of the town, the betrayed, the lost, the sacrificed. "Jamie!" A chill shot down her spine as she heard it again. Louder now, tinged with something that wasn't quite right. Was it fear or delight? She reached the bottom, the gloom parting to reveal a cavernous space filled with flickering candles and twisted figures silhouetted against the walls. Her heart dropped as her eyes found the source of the voice, barely hanging from a makeshift net. "Jamie!" His eyes were bright, wide with wonder, as if transfixed by a spell. "Help me, Mama," he whispered. But as she stepped closer, she felt the darkness tighten around her, an unseen force pulling her back. "No!" The word burst from her. She lunged toward him, only to feel icy hands latch onto her ankles from beneath the floorboards. The carnival's laughter erupted once again, a cacophony of twisted joy and malice, drowning her senses. The shadows around her surged, and the walls throbbed with ancient energy, tugging at her resolve. Would she snatch Jamie from the teeth of the nightmare, or would the carnival claim another soul? As the darkness deepened, she felt the moments slip away. With every shred of strength, she reached for Jamie. But the hooded figures emerged from the shadows, their faces masked but there. Hunger entirely visible. "Come join the show," they crooned, beckoning with bony fingers. Nora's heart raced, torn between the desire to save her son and the grasping darkness beneath her. The walls whispered the truth she feared. Was Jamie already lost to them? As she stood, frozen, the laughter crescendoed, inviting, intoxicating. What choice would Nora make to escape the malevolent carnival? Time was running out. Nora's breaths came in shallow bursts, panic clawing at her throat as the hooded figures danced in the shadows, their laughter a chilling melody that pressed against her ears. She fought against the icy grip squeezing her ankles, but the shadows were unyielding. Jamie's figure shimmered in the candlelight, his bright eyes wide but unfocused, lost in whatever spell the darkness spun. "Help me, Mama," he urged again, but the inflection shifted, edged with a terror that twisted in her gut. Was he truly there? "No, no," she shouted, despair seeping into her resolve. This was not him. This was a trick. They moved closer, the sinister figures gliding through the dark, their intentions clear. They wanted to draw her in, wanted her to join their macabre festivity. She could feel their hunger like a palpable force. It rattled her mind, whispered promises of joy that turned her stomach. Desperation ignited inside her. She couldn't let them take Jamie. The thought of losing him drove her to fight back, to shatter whatever bond held her to the spot. She tore at the shadows, reaching for the distance between her and her son. The energy coiling around her felt alive, pulling, urging her to succumb to its obscured delights, while Jamie's voice echoed through her head. "Mama, please." Nora shut her eyes tightly, a revolt against the darkness trying to seep into her mind. "You're my son. I'll save you," she cried, as she forced her weight forward, the grip on her ankles loosening just enough for her to stagger into the center of the room. The figures halted, their red-tinged eyes locked onto her, the air thickening like a fog. She could feel the electric charge of their malevolent presence. They thrived on the fear that burned in her throat. But the flickering candlelight also revealed something more, a sliver of hope. There, behind the figures, was a path leading deeper into the cavernous space. A path drenched in shadows but promising escape. "Run, Jamie!" she yelled, her voice wrapping around the command like a shield. The words fueled her movement as she dashed toward the dread-filled altar, her pulse pounding furiously in her ears. The altar had to be the key. She felt it as surely as she felt the icy hands trying to pull her back. In defiance, she reached over the writhing symbols carved into the floor, each a testament to unholy rites, and snatched a wilted flower from the base. It was cold and clammy to the touch, the petals black and distorted. As she raised it, a fierce wind pulled through the room, howling like a maelstrom. It swept away the darkness momentarily, casting a fleeting light over Jamie, who looked both frightened and yearning. "Come closer," Nora cried again, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm as she tore the flower and tossed its petals towards the figures. One by one, they recoiled as if the mere touch of the flower burned them. They hissed, their song of laughter turning into guttural growls, each boiling with rage and malice. The spell began to break. "Take my hand," Nora beckoned, though each second felt heavier, the shadows shuddering at her edges. Jamie hesitated, confusion flickering across his small face. Suddenly, a thunderous clap echoed through the chamber, rattling the very stones. The candles teetered, darkness swirling in furious contradiction. Nora felt an instinct kick in, a burning resolve rising against the odds. "Now," she barked. Jamie reached out, his small hand trembling, but the pull of the net tightened again, dragging inch by inch into its ancient grasp. In that instant she charged forward. Her body moved without her consent, a fierce determination surging through her veins. She would not let the darkness win. But before she could get to him, the darkness writhed violently, creating a barrier between them, a wall of shadows pulsating with life and fury. With a desperate scream, she lunged again, but the figures were upon her now, trailing around her like a dark storm. They gripped her arms, a thousand whispers flooding her mind, all at once, taunts, fears, promises of grief. The world blurred, drowning in chaos. "Choose," they cried in unison, their voices merging into one. "Join us or lose him forever." Nora felt her heart shredded, tearing between love and terror, caught in a web spun from her most profound fears. What would she surrender to save her son? Would it all be worth it? Or was this just the beginning of something far more sinister? Nora's heart hammered in her chest, each thump like a warning bell. The shadows tightened around her like a vice, each hiss echoing in her ears, drowning out reason. Their choice echoed sinister and clear. Join us? Or lose him forever? Panic tore through her. Jamie's trembling hand was the last thread tying her to sanity, and the wall of darkness roared with insatiable hunger. She fought against the grip of the figures, clawing at the ethereal fabric that held her captive. Their whispers, now a cacophony, seeped deep into her mind, filling her head with visions of despair. She saw herself alone, lost in a void, haunted by the sound of Jamie's fading voice. "Think, Nora, think," she screamed inwardly, desperation clawing at her throat. The wilted flower still crumbled in her fingers, its essence a sliver of hope. What did the bloom possess? It was her only weapon against the encroaching darkness. She cast her gaze around her, taking in the flickering light of the candles now wavering in fear. Beyond the altar, she spotted something glimmering in the distance, a shard of silver that seemed to pulse with energy. "Jamie!" she yelled, her voice breaking. "You have to trust me. Do what I say, please." His eyes wide and glistening with tears met hers. She could almost see the conflict warring in his gaze, drawn between obedience and the chilling pull of the figures. "Do you want to fight?" she demanded, her heart aching. "We can do this together." His small nod gave her a flicker of hope. Gathering herself, Nora twisted. With all her might, she hurled the flower's remains into the shadows. "Be gone!" she shouted. A shriek ripped through the air, piercing and raw. The figures staggered back, swirling like leaves caught in an unrelenting gust. But it wasn't enough. Their rage rekindled, and the darkness surged forward, smothering the light. "Jamie!" she screamed. But as the shadows lunged, a surge of adrenaline coursed through Nora. She wouldn't yield. She defied. Mustering her courage, she lunged toward the shimmering silver, feeling the energy wrapping around her, pulling her closer to something unfathomable. The warmth it emitted ignited a flicker of recognition. It was the promise of release, of power, of salvation. Suddenly, Jamie's voice broke through the murky chaos, sharper than a knife. "Mama!" Grabbed the silver. She twisted, every muscle in her body rebelling against the pressure of the shadows that coiled around her. With renewed determination, she dove for the shimmering object, fingers brushing against its cool surface. As she grasped it, the shadows recoiled, momentarily daunted by her defiance. A low rumble shook the chamber, the very ground quaking beneath her. The fearsome figures swept closer, their eyes burning like coals, desperate to reclaim their prize. "Don't leave me!" Jamie's whisper stung her heart, urging her to act. Nora gripped the silver tight, feeling an electric jolt shoot up her arm. It pulsed with an intensity that matched her own racing heartbeat, charging her with strength. She turned to face the encroaching darkness, each step forward a battle against resistance that felt almost alive. "Get back!" she bellowed. The words echoed, reverberating with an unseen power that pushed against the figures. They faltered, confusion etching their twisted faces. For a moment she had the upper hand, but the shadows condensed and hissed, the laughter turning into a frenzied chant. "You'll pay for this, we will have him. No escape." Nora's heart raced as the menacing chant filled the air, promising treachery and terror. Each footfall felt like a countdown, tallying how many seconds she had left before darkness engulfed her whole. She glanced back at Jamie, whose figure began to fade, swallowed by the shadows reaching for him, clawing and scraping, feasting on his fear. "Not today!" she roared, her voice cutting through the darkness. "Not ever!" With that proclamation, she felt the silver thrum with resonance as she raised it high, prepared to fight for her son until her last breath, only to discover that the figures were already closing in again, more relentless than before. An eruption of chaos filled the chamber as shadows converged on her, the ground beneath her quaking in acknowledgement of a battle of wills. Could she truly wield this newfound power? Would it be enough to save the one light left in her life? The walls trembled, darkness pressed tightly around her, and she realized this was only the beginning. In the heart of despair, a single, chilling question echoed in her mind. What if joining them meant saving him? With the figures closing in, Nora's chest tightened, caught between the dread of darkness and the glimmer of hope. She would have to choose, but would her choice lead to salvation or the end? Nora's breath came in shallow gasps, the air thick with anticipation and dread. The moment felt tangible, like a taut string ready to snap. Shadows writhed around her, silhouettes of twisted faces and contorted limbs that beckoned with an unholy longing. Each pulse of the silver forced her to confront the terrifying truth that power often demanded sacrifice. "Don't look away," she whispered to herself, willing Jamie's fading form to materialize once more. Fear flickered in his eyes, locking onto hers with desperate clarity. She wouldn't let him vanish. She couldn't. Together, she repeated, clenching the shimmering silver like a lifeline. We can fight. The figures lunged, leering with jagged smiles, their mouths stretching impossibly wide as they chanted. You're ours, join us, be one with the dark. A tremor ran through her. The voices wrapped around her mind, clawing at her sanity, promising relief from the agony of loss. They whispered secrets, treasures hidden in the shadows if she yielded, if she simply let go. No, Nora shouted, shaking her head, driven by instinct. With the silver raised high, she sought to fortify her resolve. The light burst forth, illuminating the chamber in a blinding flash, forcing the darkness to recoil. Now, Jamie, we can break free. She dashed toward him, drawing power from the silver's radiant glow, each step a deafening drumbeat of hope. But as she reached for his hand, the shadows surged forward, coalescing into a monstrous wave, a swallowing tempest of despair. The twisted faces shifted, transforming into those she knew, friends and family, their eyes hollow, their voices pleading. Join us, Nora. Don't you want to be with us forever? She staggered back, her heart lurching. No, I want tea. Her voice trembled, mixing defiance with panic. In that moment of fleeting hesitation, the darkness surged again, seizing the opportunity. Jamie's hand slipped through hers, his scream piercing her heart. Mama! No! Reality twisted in her mind as the darkness closed in, feeding on the fissures of her calm. The silver flickered, dimming under the relentless assault, its glow overshadowed by whispers of torment that rolled through the chamber, imagery crashing like waves against her reason. Then, through the chaos, a thought struck her, a last shred of determination. I refuse to give in, she screamed, her voice ringing out, firm beneath the thrumming of her terror. She flipped the silver in her hands, readying to wield it as a weapon against the encroaching gloom. With a desperate plea, she extended her other hand toward Jamie. Focus on me. Remember our love, our dreams. Fight with me. The shadows hesitated, visibly unsettled by the strength her words carried. But they quickly rallied, reforming like a dark cloud, more potent and ferocious than before. From the depths of the darkness, angry, hissing voices filled the air with discordant laughter. You think you can save him? You are lost just like the rest of us. Nora gritted her teeth, every muscle tense, heart pounding. In an act of raw fury, she lunged forward, charging into the mass of shadows. By the power of love, I banish you. Light erupted from the silver, sending luminescent waves crashing outward. The figures writhed in agony, their shrieks mixing with the sound of flesh tearing. For a brief moment, the cacophony seemed to fracture, creating a sound so heart-wrenchingly familiar. Jamie's laughter. Was it her imagination? Or did he really laugh? Fight, Mama. Keep fighting. The shadows faltered, the laughter fading back into plaintive cries as Nora pressed forward, encased in an enveloping cocoon of light. She could feel Jamie's essence calling her through the chaos, urging her to push harder, to rip through the veil of darkness. But as the shadows boiled, merging into something even more grotesque, a devastating thought snaked through her mind. What if her power came at a grave cost? What if she had to lose a piece of her soul to save her child? Nora, a voice echoed, familiar and haunting. You will pay for this defiance. As she recoiled from the realization, a harrowing silence settled into the spot where laughter had just thrived, leaving a chill that dampened the flicker of hope within her. What if this was truly the end? What price would she pay? She had to make a choice, but with each second, the shadows crept closer, clawing at her sanity, each fiendish face coalescing into one suffocating presence. In that heartbeat, trapped between the abyss and the silver light, Nora asked herself, was it worth it? Could love really conquer such fearsome darkness? The chamber fell silent, every creature holding its breath, waiting for her answer. The decision loomed over her, heavier than darkness itself. And as shadows began to drip from every corner, merging into a tidal wave of despair, She knew the hardest battle was yet to come. Could she truly grasp the light? Or would she surrender to the fate they all promised was inevitable? The air crackled with tension, electric and thick, as the shadows coiled tighter around Nora. With every passing moment, the distinction between light and dark slipped further away, her heart racing as she fought against an ever-encroaching tide. "Fight, Mama!" Jamie's voice rang in her mind, a haunting echo that urged her on. She squared her shoulders and narrowed her focus, drawing on the strength of the silver in her grasp. It pulsed wildly, radiant yet dimming under the pressure of the monstrous dark. "You won, take him," she screamed into the void, surprised by the ferocity in her own voice. In response, the shadows twisted and churned, forming grotesque shapes that leered and hissed. They twisted into familiar forms, fellow mothers, friends, their faces warped by despair, eyes filled with an insatiable hunger. "We are your family, Nora," they wailed, 1,000 voices merging into one vile harmony. "You belong with us forever." Terror bubbled in her stomach. Were they speaking truth? Would she ever see Jamie again if she broke free? Yet the thought only ignited her resolve. "No, this is not what love looks like," she countered sharply. "Love isn't about being trapped. It's about freedom." With those words, she surged forward. The silver flared to life, filling the chamber with blinding light that forced the shadows into a frenzied retreat. They shrieked and howled, trying to shield themselves from the searing brilliance that threatened to obliterate them. In that moment of vulnerability, she felt a spark of hope, the faint flicker of a chance. "Jamie," she called, voice straining against the din. "Hold on. Just hold on, I'm coming." A blinding bolt of light shot out from her, dispersing a section of the shadow mass and revealing glimpses of her son trapped within the swirling abyss. His face was a mask of fear and determination. Instinctively, she reached for him. "I'm here, baby. I won't leave you." But as her fingers brushed against his, the shadows retaliated with a fierce roar, a black wave crashing over her like an avalanche. "No." She gritted her teeth, preparing to fight tooth and nail, but the din clamored louder. "Take her. Take her now." The chant was relentless, a fevered pitch that threatened to shred her sanity. The silver dimmed even further, flickers of light sputtering like dying embers. She felt her connection to Jamie slipping, dragging her back toward the ever-deepening darkness. No panic clawed at her mind as she fought back against the terrifying sensation of ownership that threatened to pull her under. "I choose love." Summoning every ounce of strength, she pulled the silver directly to her chest, horrified by the thought of losing everything. The darkness recoiled momentarily, as if shocked by her sudden energy. The figures wavered, their forms dissipating into shadows that thrashed uncertainly as light shimmered around her like an armor. But Nora could feel them reclaiming their strength. "You'll never escape," one last voice hissed, as if coiling around her mind. "You belong to us. You are nothing without us." Fighting back against the tide of despair, she screamed, "I am more than your shadows. I am the light." The silver flared violently, a blinding shockwave exploding from her as she fought to push through the void. Just as hope flickered anew, the shadows lashed out with renewed vigor, engulfing her in a swirling mass of clawing darkness. "You think you can resist?" they hissed. "You will give in you are ours." Nora felt herself being drawn deeper into the abyss. Her spirit rattled as faces she loved melted back into the darkness, a vision of Jamie tearing at her heart. Reality slipped, the world closing in around her, the light dimmed just a fraction more. What if the cost of love was greater than she could ever bear? In that fractured moment between despair and hope, uncertainty gripped her tightly. Would she make it through? Would Jamie be lost forever? Choking on fear and determination, she prepared for one last act, one final effort that could either shatter them all or lead her to salvation. Could she harness her love and wield it as her shield, or would the darkness finally consume her? The shadows closed in like a noose, and the air throbbed with anticipation. What was left to lose? The darkness enveloped Nora, tightening like a vice around her chest. She gasped, striving to breathe against the weight of despair. It was like drowning in a sea of cold ink, the pressing shadows intent on claiming her. "No," she shouted, words raw and wild, echoing into the malevolence. "I won't give in." As if responding to her defiance, a flicker of light surged within her, igniting the silver-esque glow anew. It surged upward, tearing through the clutches of shadow, a beacon in the consuming dark. The malevolent forms hissed, their grotesque faces distorting in rage. "You cannot fight what is your own," they gurgled, their voices melding into an unsettling choir. Nora felt her resolve falter, doubt skittering through her mind like ice on water. "You belong to us. We are your shadows, your fate." The words twisted around her heart, trying to wrap her tighter in their grip. Memories of the past warm moments with Jamie, whispers of laughter flickered in and out. What if, in trying to save him, she lost herself entirely? "Jamie, I love you," she screamed, and it was a prayer, an anchoring through the storm of despair. "I choose light." The silver flared one last time, igniting a brilliance so fierce, it pierced the dark like a dagger. The shadows shrieked, recoiling, scrambling backwards, dissolving into wispy tendrils. But the retreat was short-lived. With renewed fury, the shadows surged in, gnarled hands grasping desperately for her. They lashed out, a tide of pitch-black fury. "You cannot escape. You are ours, forever." With a heart hammering against her ribs, Nora steadied herself. She focused on the love she felt for Jamie, the bright image of him shining through the veil of dread. With that thought, she thrust out the silver, channeling the love she no longer hesitated to embrace, a force fierce enough to split the darkness. The shadows writhed, hissing in protest. This fight could not merely be won with strength. It was a battle of wills. "Love is freedom," she cried, feeling the truth resonate within her. "And I will not let you take him." Suddenly, the darkness began to dissipate, swirling back and splitting, revealing a narrow corridor of light. Nora took a step, then another, heart racing, rushing toward the blossoming brightness. "Jamie," she called, desperation tinging her voice. "Hold on, baby, I'm coming." But as she neared the light, the shadows lashed out again, claiming her ankle with frigid fingers, pulling her back into the void. She stumbled, the brilliance flickering as the cold seeped into her bones. Terror clawed at her throat. "No, no, no." The echoes of despair wrapped around her, muffling Jamie's voice, replacing it with whispers of doubt. "You'll never see him again. Be one with your family." Nora clutched the silver tightly. "I choose my path," she screamed, defiant. In response, the air thickened, shadows pressing in with a vile chorus. "Then let your choice be your undoing." For a heartbeat, panic clenched her heart. What if she couldn't push through the veil of despair? But before doubt could take root, a pulse of warmth surged through her, igniting a fierce light that banished the encroaching darkness. She surged forward. But as she reached the warm brightness, a horrible realization struck her. Jamie wasn't there. In the center of the illumination stood a precipice, a swirling void beneath, dark energy swirling like a hurricane. A figure loomed over it, shadows clinging to a familiar little form. "Jamie. Mom." His voice rang clear yet weak, fighting against the abyss's suffocating pull. Nora's heart lurched. "I'm coming, sweetheart." But time was slipping. The darkness writhed against her determined. It clawed at her very soul, its whispers escalating to a fever pitch. "You will join us, Nora. You are bound to us." Nora felt the pull of despair tightening its grip. Would she fight for Jamie, or would the creeping shadows drag them both into oblivion? The choice loomed as heavy as the darkness itself, and with her voice trembling yet determined, she shouted, "I choose love." The shadows recoiled, but how long? Could she resist? As reality began to fade and the abyss threatened to swallow them both whole, she realized love might not be enough this time. And in that chaotic moment, as the darkness surged forth, a chilling truth unfurled. This fight had only just begun. What horrors awaited them in the abyss? Nora felt the air grow thick and suffocating, the shadows closing in like hungry wolves. The vortex beneath Jamie twisted, swirling with a malevolence that clawed at Nora's sanity. "Mom!" Jamie cried, his voice trembling as he struggled against the insatiable pull of darkness. Desperation sharpened Nora's focus. "Hold on, baby. I'm coming." Each word felt like a stone thrown into the abyss, rippling the dark surface but never quite breaking through. The shadows shrieked, the chorus of despair rising to a cacophony that rattled her bones. "Love is not enough," they wailed, their voices slithering through the air, dry and sinister. "You are nothing without us. You have always belonged here." "No," she shouted, teeth clenched. She fought the urge to succumb, to let the shadows weave around her like a familiar cloak. They hissed and lashed, a tempest of darkness, trying to drown her screams. But with each heartbeat, she felt the warmth of Jamie's love pulsing, an echo that blazed through her like molten silver. With a fierce determination, she lunged forward, grasping at Jamie's outstretched hand. "Reach for me." I want to let go. But the abyss gaped before them, a maw of swirling darkness eager to swallow any glimmer of hope. She felt its icy breath, its toxic whispers chanting for her surrender. "Together, you could be free, join your family." It beckoned, as the other voices merged into a haunting melody of remembrance, calling forth long-buried fears and insecurities. But then she saw a glimmer of light behind her, a soft silver shine flickering in the distance. It beckoned her, promising a way out, a chance to write their own story. "I want to let them win." She hurled herself against the tug of despair. The shadows converged, a relentless tide pushing back against her, a surge of tendrils wrapping around her legs, dragging her toward the void. "You will be ours forever," they hissed, syllables dripping with dark joy. "You can't escape your fate, Nora." Panic fueled her. "I choose light. I choose love." The silver in her hand shimmered, radiating warmth, clashing with the grasping shadows. But with a sinister laugh, the shadows tightened their grip, pulling her back down, the vibrancy of her love flickering like a dying ember. As the cold gnawed at her skin, she felt Jamie's small hand slip from her grasp. "Mom, I can't hold on." "No." Panic surged like fire in her veins. She threw her head back and screamed. A howl of defiance echoed into the void. Suddenly, the darkness recoiled, shadows momentarily unfurling away from her. In that instant, she saw Jamie, suspended between two worlds, filled with hope and fear. But the moment was fleeting. With a sharp inhalation of dread, the shadows lunged again, snatching Jamie from view. "You're losing him," they taunted, the air thick with their vile joy. "Join us, and he will be yours forever." Nora felt time shattering around her, the fraying threads of reality warping as the abyss taunted her. "This is your only chance." Nora, the voice, pulled her in. Promises lazy and sweet, yet the shadows sang with venom. Choose wisely. With her heart pounding, she searched her mind. How could she forge a path through this despair? Could love truly shine in the depths of such sorrow? Nora felt herself slipping. A brilliant thought ignited, an idea crafted from every moment of joy, every hug, every kind word exchanged with Jamie. "No, you want to take him from me." With a lurch, she yanked on the thread of hope, and the silver flared ferociously. But at that moment, a wrenching, gut-deep laugh filled the hollow space, a laughter that echoed deep within her soul, a dark promise of what lay ahead. "You think you can fight your fate? Welcome to your destiny, Nora." And then, shadows swarmed, obliterating Jamie's last glimpse, plunging them both into an enveloping dread. There was no escape now. What nightmare revealed itself as she fell deeper into darkness? Nora fell, her body weightless, suspended in a void thicker than night. Time melted around her, twisting and turning into grotesque forms as she plummeted deeper, drowning in a silence that screamed. She stretched her arms wide, reaching for something, anything, as anxiety clawed at her throat. The endless darkness pressed against her, suffocating, each breath a reminder of Jamie's absence. Then the laughter came again, a guttural mockery that wormed its way into her mind. "This was meant to be, sweet Nora," it echoed, wrapping dripping tendrils around her thoughts. Memories flared. Moments of happiness, Jamie's laughter, his sticky hands clinging to her neck, flooded her. Each image charred in the blackness, twisted into grotesque caricatures of what had once been. "Jamie!" she shouted, her voice cracking, swallowed by the void. "Where are you?" The darkness stirred, swirling dangerously, and she felt the space around her shift. Was it a trick of the mind, or was something real lying in wait? She sensed it, a presence edging closer, thick like the air before a storm. "Your love is weak," it hissed, dark and smooth, like oil spreading over clear water. "Cannot fight us." Nora's heart skidded, a tremor raced through her body. "No," she gasped, the word bursting from her like a wounded animal. Would she let them win just like that? As if in answer, a blinding flash of light erupted in the darkness. It was sharp, cutting through the chaos like a blade. Nora squinted against the radiance, her instincts screaming to turn away, yet something deeper urged her to stand firm. The light coalesced, forming a corridor of shimmering energy that beckoned her. "Freedom lies ahead," a voice called, sweet as honey but steeped in the unmistakable taint of deception. "Join us and you shall find your son." "Stop it," Nora cried, her voice splitting the air as she stepped toward the light. "I won't abandon him." The shadows roared in fury, their hisses blending into a cacophony of anguish, thrashing around her. They coiled tighter, a vengeful flock intent on keeping her tethered to despair. But now the shimmering light fought back, illuminating her with a warmth that felt electric against her skin. "Follow the light, Nora, your son awaits," the voice purred, permeated with temptation. The choice gnawed at her. Was it a mirage, a cruel trick of the malevolent force that sought to claim her? A thin beam of hope pierced through her fear, but doubt loomed, dark and oppressive. "Mom!" A fragile voice, distant but familiar, echoed through the darkness, sending shards of icy panic racing down her spine. "Jamie!" It was real, his voice cutting through like the sun breaking a storm. She turned on her heel, throwing herself toward the flickering light that felt increasingly more tangible with each breath. "I'm coming, baby!" she screamed, desperation surging through her limbs as her feet propelled her forward. She reached with all her might, stretching toward the glimmer that promised salvation. The shadows roared, colliding with the light, darkness clawing their way back to her, fighting against her resolve. "You can't survive this. You are ours," they shrieked. But she couldn't listen. As she ran, the edges of her reality shook, tearing at the seams. Every inch she took brought her closer to the light, yet the shadows encroached, hungry for her surrender. Then, she felt it cool air against her skin, the scent of damp earth and moss. The echo of her son's sweet laughter hummed in the back of her mind. The light burst forth unexpectedly, and she spiraled through, free-falling into a new world. "Mom!" Jamie's voice rang clear now, close enough to touch. Nora landed hard, a jarring impact spinning her out of control. She staggered to her feet, breathless, eyes wide, and what lay before her sent cold tendrils of dread creeping back into her heart. In the distance, shadows still roamed, coiling around ancient trees twisted in anguish. But Jamie wasn't there. "Jamie!" Her voice boomed in the thick silence, laced with urgency. As she searched frantically, the shadows whispered again. There. Malevolence curling around her resolve. "You will never leave." Panic surged anew. Had she merely traded one trap for another? But then, she spotted him, a flicker of movement, a flash of his bright shirt hidden beneath the trees. "Hang on, Jamie. I'm coming." In that moment, she realized, the true battle was only just beginning. What horrors awaited her as she plunged deeper into the ancient, shadow-infested woods. Nora propelled herself forward, determination coursing through her veins. The shadows writhed ominously in the distance, but Jamie's bright shirt was a beacon amidst the encroaching darkness, a glimmer of hope to guide her through the mire. Each step felt heavy yet resolute as she tore through the dense underbrush, sticks cracking beneath her feet, the chill of the swamp creeping back, entwining her legs like grasping fingers. "Jamie, I'm right here," she shouted, her voice slicing through the oppressive silence, a lifeline tossed into the abyss. "Mom," came his voice again, distorted but unmistakable, pulling at her heart. The shadows shifted, a feral growl erupting from their depths, voices melding into a sinister chorus. "You cannot save him," they hissed, every syllable a dagger aimed at her resolve. "You cannot escape your fate." Ignoring their venomous whispers, Nora sprinted, breath coming in ragged gasps as she pushed past the looming ferns that seemed to close in, stifling her path. Visions of shadows danced at the corners of her eyes, urging her to give in, to accept the weight of despair. But she wouldn't falter. Ahead, Jamie's form grew clearer. She could see him now, trapped within the gnarled roots of a great tree, his bright eyes wide with fear, the shadows latching onto him like leeches. Panic clawed at her throat as she fought against the clawing darkness. "I'm coming, baby. Hold on. Don't let them take me, Mama." His voice trembled, piercing through the murk with pure terror. With a desperate lunge, she broke through the final barrier of shadows, propelling herself toward him. "I won, T. I promise." But just as she reached for him, the shadows lunged as well, clamoring to pull him deeper into their suffocating embrace. "No," she screamed, reaching out with everything she had. In that moment of contact, the air thickened with tension. The world around them slowed, reality blurring, shadows screeching, a nightmare reaching its climax. Nora grasped Jamie's hand tightly, ready to wrench him from their grasp. But the shadows retaliated ferociously, unleashing a shriek that rattled the very ground. Dark tendrils wrapped around Nora's legs like serpents, dragging her back. She dug her heels into the earth, a primal roar escaping her lips as she fought with every ounce of strength. "Let him go," she bellowed, wrestling against the pull of malevolence that sought to reclaim yet another child. "Yes, mine. You have no power over us." In that moment, she felt a surge within herself, the overwhelming love for her son manifesting in bright, dazzling light that flickered at her fingertips. "Jamie, focus on me," she urged, pulling him closer as if the warmth radiating off her skin could shield him from the chill of despair. As the shadows flared around them, she summoned the memories she treasured, the sound of his laughter, the warmth of their cuddles on stormy nights, the comforting weight of his tiny hand in hers. As if fueled by her declaration, the light exploded from her, bathing them both in warmth and hope. Shadows reeled back, howling in fury as they tried to shield themselves from the brilliance. "Now, Jamie," she yelled, heart pounding in rhythm with the energy thrumming through her body. "We can do it. We can escape." Together, they pulled against the tide of darkness, heaving against the pull. Nora felt the shadows slackening, a moment of clarity bursting forth. The swirling chaos began to part, revealing a pathway, a sliver of freedom. With one final heave, they surged toward the light, Nora dragging Jamie with her. The shadows roared, desperate and angry, but she didn't look back. "We are not afraid," she shouted, channeling every ounce of love and every fleeting moment of joy. "You can't have us." And just like that, with one last push, they broke free. Nora gasped as they burst into a clearing illuminated by moonlight, the cold fingers of dark retreating behind them, hissing with defeat. "Mom!" Jamie's eyes sparkled with relief, and he threw his arms around her, collapsing into her embrace. "You saved me." Tears streamed down Nora's face. She held him tight, letting the warmth of their love quell the lingering darkness. "I'll always save you, no matter what," she murmured, a promise woven between them stronger than any shadow that dared to linger. But even as they stood in the fresh light of salvation, the echoes of the carnival played softly through the trees, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lingered just at the edges of their world. Yet in that moment, standing together, she knew they had triumphed over the sinister past. "We can face whatever comes, as long as we're together," she affirmed, her heart surging with hope. As they turned back to the woods, ready to face whatever awaited them, Nora clutched Jamie's hand tighter, knowing love would always light the way forward. They took a step into the cleansing fog of dawn, shadows fading behind them, remnants of the past losing grip. The end was just the beginning. Don't miss out on more heart-pounding stories. Subscribe immediately to the channel now, so you never miss the next exclusive tale. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and share the thrill. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Jamie and Nora's next adventures. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this beautiful bond. You need to show your support. This is the moment. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your engagement keeps the darkness at bay.